She looked me up and down like I was a stranger, an inconvenience. Then she leaned down, smiled sweet for the nurse, and hissed in my ear, "I can't do this. You know how old people smell makes me gag." And just like that she turned her back and walked out of my birthday. No hug, no cake, not even a real goodbye. I'd saved a week of insulin money to afford that damn cake. The chocolate one with vanilla frosting she used to love as a kid. I thought maybe it would remind her of better days. Days when she actually wanted to be around me. But she barely glanced at it before she complained about the parking and checked her phone 3 times. The nurses pretended not to notice. They always do. They see this kind of thing every single day in places like this. Adult children who can't bear to sit with their aging parents for more than 10 minutes. I watched her designer heels click down the hallway, getting quieter and quieter until they disappeared completely. My hands shook as I cut myself a slice of cake. Tasted like cardboard. "My name is Charlotte. Dr. Charlotte Whittaker. I'm not supposed to be here. In this place. In this chair." But when I had the stroke, there wasn't anyone else. She didn't answer. Didn't visit. I had to sell the house just to pay for care. I didn't tell anyone I used to be a trauma surgeon. Why would I? I was just the woman in room 204 who didn't have visitors. The staff treated me kindly enough, but I could see it in their eyes. Pity mixed with curiosity. They wondered why a woman my age sat alone every visiting day while families crowded around other patients. I stopped explaining years ago that I had a daughter. It hurt less to let them assume I was alone in the world. At least then their pity made sense. The truth was so much worse. I had raised a brilliant, successful doctor who couldn't stand to be in the same room as me for longer than 5 minutes. She'd rather let me rot in here than face the guilt of what she'd become. Some days I wondered if the stroke was my body's way of giving up. From rehab to assisted living to this nursing home, she never showed. No check-ins. No FaceTime. Not even a voicemail. The staff asked if I had children. I lied. "She's just busy. Med school, you know." But she was already a doctor by then. Too busy, apparently, for the woman who paid for every textbook she ever opened. Too important to visit the mother who sacrificed everything so she could have her perfect career. I watched other families come and go. Grandchildren with flowers. Sons with takeout containers. Daughters who brushed their mother's hair and painted their nails. I sat by the window and pretended to read. But really I was watching the parking lot, hoping maybe this time she'd surprise me. Maybe this time she'd remember I existed. The hope always died by sunset. Then I'd shuffle back to my room, take my pills, and go to bed early because what else was there to do? The loneliness wasn't the worst part. The worst part was knowing she was out there living the life I'd built for her, and she couldn't even send a text. I wrote her every week during my recovery. Funny stories, dates, stupid little drawings to make her smile. Months later I found them, all of them, in her desk drawer when I stopped by her apartment to drop off some mail. Still sealed. She hadn't even pretended to read them. I stood there in her pristine kitchen, holding a stack of unopened envelopes, and something inside me cracked. Each one had a little heart drawn on the back. Each one took me an hour to write because my hand still shook from the stroke. I'd poured my heart into those letters. Told her about the physical therapy. About the kind nurse who reminded me of her grandmother. About how scared I was at night when the room got too quiet. And she'd shoved them in a drawer like junk mail. I didn't confront her about it. What would be the point? She'd just make excuses. Claim she'd been meaning to read them. Promise to do better. I'd heard it all before. Instead I quietly took the letters back. Threw them away in a dumpster 3 blocks from her building. Let them disappear like I apparently had from her life. I thought I'd gone unnoticed. Then a new nurse walked in, paused and said, "Wait, Dr. Whittaker." The room went still. She remembered me from my surgical days. And standing right next to her was my daughter. The nurse's face lit up with recognition and respect. "You saved my cousin's life 10 years ago. Car accident. You worked on her for 6 hours straight. She's married now. Has 2 kids. Her voice wavered with emotion. "You're a legend at County General." My daughter's face went pale. She looked between me and the nurse like we were speaking a foreign language. "What?" she whispered. "What are you talking about?" The nurse glanced at her, confused. "Your mother didn't tell you. She was one of the best trauma surgeons in the state. She trained half the current staff." I watched my daughter process this information. Watched her perfect composure crack just slightly. Her mouth opened and closed. No words came out. The nurse excused herself awkwardly, sensing the tension. We sat in silence for a full minute. Then my daughter finally spoke. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" I just smiled. I wasn't interested in being impressive anymore. That was the first time she looked at me like I might be more than a burden. Not a mother. Not a patient. Person. "Why didn't you tell me?" she repeated, her voice rising slightly. "All this time I thought you were just, I don't know. I thought you'd worked in some clinic or something." I folded my hands in my lap. "You never asked." The words came out flat. Matter of fact. She flinched like I'd slapped her. "That's not fair," she protested. "You could have mentioned it. You could have told me you were important." Important. That word hung in the air between us. So I was only worth her attention if I'd been important. Only worth visiting if I had an impressive title. I thought about all the times I'd called her. All the messages I'd left. All the ways I'd tried to stay connected to her life. None of that had mattered before. "I was important," I said quietly. "I was your mother. That should have been enough." She didn't have a response to that. She just stared at her expensive shoes and shifted uncomfortably. After a few more minutes of awkward silence, she made an excuse about a meeting and left. As usual. Could have chased status. I had offers. Chief of Trauma, medical director, even a seat on a national board. But she was 6 years old and scared of the dark. So I turned them all down. "I can always be a doctor later," I told myself. Later never came. She needed me more than those positions did. She needed someone to pack her lunches and help with homework and chase away the nightmares. Her father had left when she was 3. It was just us against the world. I chose bedtime stories over boardrooms. Soccer games over surgery schedules. I went part-time. Then per diem. Then eventually, I stopped operating altogether and took a teaching position at the local community college. Lower stress. More time at home. Enough money to keep us comfortable. My colleagues thought I was crazy. "You're at the top of your game," they'd say. "Why would you walk away now?" But they didn't understand. Success meant nothing if my daughter grew up feeling abandoned. I wanted her to know she came first. Always. Funny how that worked out. I gave up everything for her. And she couldn't even visit me on my birthday. The first time she erased me was when she was 19. She told someone, "I worked hard. No one handed me anything." I didn't correct her. I just swallowed it. Like always. We were at her college graduation party. I'd saved for months to throw it. Rented a small hall. Made all the food myself. Invited her friends and professors. She was surrounded by people congratulating her. Someone asked how she managed to graduate with honors while working part-time. That's when she said it, standing 10 feet away from me. "I worked hard. No one handed me anything. I did this myself." The words cut deep. But I smiled and pretended I hadn't heard. Pretended it was fine that she forgot about every bill I paid. Every night I stayed up helping her study. Every sacrifice I made. Her friends nodded approvingly. They loved a good bootstrap story. And she loved the attention. Loved being seen as self-made. I wondered if she actually believed it. If somewhere along the way, she'd rewritten history in her mind. Made herself the hero and me just background noise. I went home early that night. Cried in my car in the parking lot. Then wiped my face and told myself it didn't matter. She never asked where the money came from. 4 years of med school. Every dime paid in cash. I sold antiques. Liquidated savings. Skipped medication. Skipped food. She never once asked how I afforded it. Medical school is expensive. Over $50,000 a year. Books alone cost thousands. Plus rent and food and transportation. She lived comfortably the entire time. Never had to take out loans. Never had to worry about how she'd eat. I made sure of that. I worked 3 jobs at one point. Taught classes in the morning. Consulted remotely in the afternoon. Waited tables on weekends. My body screamed at me to stop. My doctor warned me I was headed for a breakdown. But I pushed through because she was my purpose. My reason for getting up every day. She assumed I was quietly drowning. And I let her. I never complained. Never asked her to contribute or get a job. I wanted her focused on her studies. Focused on building the life she deserved. I thought when she graduated and got a good job, she'd look back and understand. Appreciate what I'd done. Maybe even thank me. But she just kept moving forward. Never looking back. They think I'm helpless. My doctor says I'm healing faster than expected. The stroke didn't take my mind. Just slowed me down. I could have gone home months ago. But I didn't. Because when people think you're powerless, they show you who they really are. They drop their masks. Say things they'd never say to your face if they thought you were still capable. I learned that lesson fast in this place. I watched staff gossip about patients they thought couldn't hear. I overheard family members discussing inheritances while their parents dozed in wheelchairs. I saw the difference between genuine care and obligatory visits. It was eye-opening, depressing, but also clarifying. So I stayed, played weak, let everyone underestimate me, gave me space to think, to heal without pressure, to decide what I actually wanted from the rest of my life. And to see exactly who my daughter had become when she thought I couldn't do anything about it. The physical therapist thought I was being stubborn. You're ready, she'd say. You can walk. You can manage stairs. Why are you still here? I just smiled and said I wasn't ready yet. That I felt safer here. She'd nod sympathetically and schedule another week. Izzy. A nurse made the mistake of calling her when my meds were late. Why are you calling me? He's fine. Isn't this your job? That was the moment I decided she didn't need to know anything more than what she already assumed. I'd been sitting right there when the nurse made the call. My blood pressure medication was delayed because of a pharmacy error. Nothing serious. Just a heads-up call. Professional courtesy to family members. The nurse was kind and calm, explaining the situation clearly. And my daughter snapped at her. Irritated that her busy day was interrupted. Frustrated that she was expected to care about something so trivial. The nurse's face went red. She apologized for bothering her and hung up quickly. Then she looked at me with such sadness. I'm sorry, I told her. My daughter is very busy. The nurse just patted my hand and left the room. But I saw her face. The judgment. The disappointment. She'd seen plenty of neglectful family members before. That night I made my decision. My daughter didn't deserve updates. Didn't deserve to know how I was doing or what I needed. She'd made her priorities clear. So I stopped asking the staff to contact her at all. Emergency contacts were updated. She was removed from the list. She didn't notice. I invited her to dinner at the facility. She came in a designer coat and brought nothing but attitude. So what's this about, Mom? You dying or something? I said nothing. I just watched how easily she played polite for the staff. She swept into the dining room like she owned it. Hair perfect, makeup flawless. Smiled at the nurses. Complimented the decor. Played the role of dutiful daughter for anyone watching. Then she sat down across from me and dropped the act completely. This better be important, she said, checking her phone. I have plans tonight. I'd prepared a whole speech. Things I wanted to say. Questions I wanted to ask. But sitting there watching her scroll through messages, I realized none of it mattered. She wasn't listening. She'd never been listening. Just wanted to see you, I said quietly. She rolled her eyes. You see me all the time. It had been 6 weeks since her last visit. 6 weeks felt like all the time to her. We ate in near silence. She complained about hospital politics. Bragged about a surgery she'd performed. Never once asked how I was feeling. When her phone buzzed, she grabbed her coat. "Emergency," she announced. I knew it wasn't. I nodded anyway. She left without finishing her way meal. One night a patient started crashing. I stepped in. Gave 3 words. The nurse caught it before the doctor did. That nurse now calls me Dr. Whitaker in the halls. And I let her. Mrs. Patterson in room 209 went into respiratory distress around midnight. I heard the commotion from my room. Heard the panic in the young nurse's voice. I pulled on my robe and shuffled over. Watched for 30 seconds. Saw exactly what was happening. Pneumothorax. Left side. 3 calm words. The nurse's head whipped around. She looked at me. Then at Mrs. Patterson. Then back at me. She grabbed the stethoscope and listened. Her eyes went wide. She immediately called for the on-call doctor and started the protocol for a collapsed lung. Mrs. Patterson was in surgery within the hour. She survived. The nurse found me the next morning. "How did you know?" she asked. I just smiled. Years of practice. She looked at my chart. Saw my first name. Did some research. Found out who I used to be. Now she treats me differently. With respect. With curiosity. She asks medical questions. Runs scenarios by me. Calls me doctor. Other staff noticed. Started asking questions. Word spread quietly that room 204 wasn't just another forgotten patient. Some mysteries have a way of revealing themselves. The director asked me to help. They offered me an advisory role at the facility. Just part-time. Quiet. Behind the scenes. Said yes. Because slowly I was remembering who I used to be. And because I wanted my daughter to find out the hard way. The director, Mrs. Chen, knocked on my door one afternoon. "Dr. Whitaker, may I have a moment?" She sat down and explained they were struggling with medical protocols. Staff training was inconsistent. Several patients had close calls that could have been prevented. She'd heard I had experience. "We can't pay much," she admitted. "But we could use your expertise. Few hours a week. Review cases. Train staff. Help us improve." I considered it. Thought about all the empty hours I spent staring at walls. All the knowledge gathering dust in my brain. "I'll do it," I said. She looked relieved. We shook hands. Started the next week. I reviewed patient files. Identified gaps in care. Developed training modules. Taught nurses how to spot warning signs. How to think critically. How to trust their instincts. The facility started running smoother. Staff confidence grew. Mrs. Chen bragged about her secret weapon. I requested one thing, keep it quiet. No announcements. No publicity. She agreed. But secrets in small places never stay buried long. That house had my mother's piano, my grandmother's china, my entire history. I sold it in 48 hours to cover her 3rd year of med school. She said thank you. Once. In a text. The realtor called it a motivated sale. That's code for desperate. I priced it below market. Needed the cash immediately. Tuition was due. Her housing deposit was due. She was stressed and I couldn't let her fail because of money. I walked through each room one last time. Ran my fingers over the piano keys. Packed up the china carefully. Most of it went to charity. Kept one plate. One teacup. Small enough to fit in my apartment. The rest of my history was sold to strangers. My daughter's text came 3 days later. Got the tuition payment. Thanks, Mom. No exclamation point. No emotion. Just acknowledgement. I stared at those words, tried to find gratitude in them. Tried to convince myself it was enough for a long time. I never told her what I sold. Never explained that her education cost me my childhood home. My mother's legacy. Everything I had left of my family. She never asked where such a large sum came from. Maybe she didn't want to know. Maybe she assumed I had money hidden away. Either never said another word about it. Changed my will. My name is on every tuition receipt. Her name used to be on my will. Now it's not. I started a scholarship instead. For girls like me. Girls who won't throw their mothers away. My lawyer looked surprised when I explained the changes. Are you sure? He asked carefully. This is your only child. I was sure. More sure than I'd been about anything in years. Every dollar I had left would go to the Dr. Charlotte Whitaker Fund for Women in Medicine. The scholarship would target young women from difficult backgrounds. Single mothers. First-generation college students. Women who understood sacrifice. Who wouldn't take their opportunities for granted. Who might actually appreciate the gift. I listed the requirements carefully. Academic excellence. Financial need. A demonstrated commitment to serving underserved communities. And one more thing. An essay about a person who sacrificed for their education. I wanted recipients to recognize and honor the people who lifted them up. My daughter would inherit nothing. She'd be furious when she found out. But I didn't care. She'd already taken everything I had to give. She'd built her career on my bones. This money would go to someone who deserved it. Someone who might actually say thank you and mean it. The papers were signed, notarized, filed away. Final. A young woman came in carrying homemade soup for her mom. She sat, fed her, brushed her hair. She doesn't owe her anything, the nurses whispered. That girl made me cry. Not for myself. For what I never had. The mother, Mrs. Rodriguez, had Alzheimer's. Didn't recognize her daughter anymore. Called her by wrong names. Sometimes got angry and combative. But the daughter came every single day. Brought food. Read books aloud. Played old music. Held her mother's hand through the confusion. I watched them from my doorway sometimes. Watched the patience. The tenderness. The love that asked for nothing in return. The daughter caught me looking once. Smiled warmly. Your daughter visits too, right? She asked. I lied. Said yes. Said she was just very busy. But inside I was breaking. Because what I was watching was the relationship I'd dreamed of. The relationship I'd sacrificed everything to build. And it had never materialized. I'd done everything right. Loved completely. Given endlessly. And somehow ended up alone anyway. That night I cried harder than I had since the stroke. Cried for the daughter I'd raised. Cried for the mother I'd been. Cried for the future I'd imagined that would never exist. When the nurse checked on me, I blamed it on pain. She gave me medication and dimmed the lights. But the real pain had no cure. I called. For the first time in weeks. Said she needed a character reference for a prestigious fellowship. I told her I hadn't worked in years. Try someone who actually knows you, I said. Then I hung up. Her voice was bright with excitement when I answered. Mom. Great news. I'm applying for the Anderson Fellowship. It's incredibly competitive. Life-changing opportunity. She barely paused for breath. I need 3 character references from respected professionals. Can you write one? Something inside me snapped. I haven't practiced medicine in over a decade, I said slowly. I'm not a respected professional anymore. I'm just an old woman in a nursing home. Silence. Mom, come on. You were a trauma surgeon. That counts. Was, I repeated. Past tense. I gave that up, remember? To raise you. So I could be there for soccer practice and parent-teacher conferences. So you wouldn't grow up alone. My voice stayed calm but firm. You need references from people who actually know you now. People you've stayed in touch with. People you actually visit. That's not fair, she protested. I visit you. When? Yes. When was your last visit? Can you tell me the date? Silence again. Try someone who actually knows you, I said. Then I hung up. My hands were shaking. But I didn't regret it. Not even a little. My birthday came again. No calls. No visits. No card. But the staff brought me cupcakes. And I spent the day teaching a CNA how to identify early signs of sepsis. It was the most useful I'd felt in months. The cupcakes were chocolate with vanilla frosting. The staff remembered from last year. They sang off key and made me blow out a single candle. It was sweet. Simple. more than my daughter had ever done. I thanked them genuinely. They seemed pleased. A young CNA named Maria asked if she could shadow me during rounds. The nurses say you're teaching them things they never learned in school, she explained. Could you teach me too? I agreed. We spent hours going over patient assessments. I showed her what to look for, how to notice subtle changes, how small signs can mean big problems. She was eager. Great questions. Took notes. Actually listened. At the end of the day, she hugged me. Thank you, Dr. Whitaker. This was better than any class I've taken. That hug meant more than she could know. I went to bed that night feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. Purpose. Usefulness. Maybe even happiness. My daughter's absence hurt less when I remembered I had value beyond being her mother. I was still a doctor. Still a teacher. Still someone who mattered. She said I wasn't really her mom anymore. I overheard her talking in the lobby. She just sits there. I barely recognize her. She said it like I was already gone. I went back to my room and locked the drawer with her tuition receipts inside. Come down for physical therapy. Finished early. Was heading back when I heard her voice in the lobby. She was on her phone, speaking freely. Didn't know I was nearby. I don't know, Jessica. Is just different. Not the mom I remember. I froze behind a pillar. Listen. She just sits there all day. Barely talks. It's depressing. I can barely stand to visit. I know I should feel guilty, but honestly, I don't even recognize her anymore. She's not really my mom. Not the person who raised me. My chest tightened. I gripped the wall to steady myself. She thought I wasn't her mother anymore because I'd gotten sick. Because I'd aged. Because I wasn't useful to her anymore. The woman who gave up everything for her was disposable now that she needed care instead of giving it. I didn't confront her. Just slipped back to my room. Pulled out the drawer where I kept her tuition receipts. Every single one. Proof of what I'd sacrificed. I looked at them for a long time. Then I locked them away. She didn't deserve to see them. Didn't deserve to know. The hospital featured me in a write-up. 20 years of trauma reform. Photos. Quotes. Legacy. She found out through a colleague. I didn't invite her. She didn't belong there. County General was celebrating its 50th anniversary. They reached out to former staff members for a commemorative publication. Someone remembered me. They asked for an interview. Said yes. Talked about the early days. The changes I'd helped implement. The lives saved. The innovations introduced. The article was published in their quarterly magazine. My photo took up half a page. The headline read, Dr. Charlotte Whitaker, the quiet force behind modern trauma care. They listed my achievements. The protocols I'd developed. The awards I'd won. The respect I'd earned. Copy was mailed to me. I read it with mixed emotions. Pride. Sadness. Regret. I'd been someone once. Someone important. Someone who mattered. And I'd walked away from it without hesitation because being a mother seemed more important. Now I had neither. No career. No grateful daughter. Just memories and regrets. She found out because a colleague mentioned it. Hey, isn't Whitaker your last name? Any relation to Charlotte Whitaker? My daughter had no idea what they were talking about. Had to Google my name. Found the article. Finally saw who I'd been before I became invisible. She stormed into my room, holding the article. Why didn't you tell me who you were? I looked at her. I was waiting to see who you were. Her face was flushed. Eyes bright with anger and confusion. She waved the magazine at me. This whole time. All these years. You never said anything. You let me think. She trailed off. Didn't finish the sentence. Couldn't admit what she'd thought of me. Let you think what? I asked quietly. That I was nobody. That I hadn't accomplished anything. That I didn't matter. She flinched. That's not what I thought. Wasn't it? I met her eyes steadily. You said it yourself. I'm not really your mom anymore. Just some old woman who sits around all day. You heard that. Her voice went small. I hear a lot of things. I gestured to the article. Is this what it takes? A magazine spread. Awards and recognition. Does that make me worth visiting now? She opened her mouth, closed it, had no good answer. I was waiting to see who you were, I repeated. What kind of person you'd become. Whether you'd visit me because you loved me or because I was impressive. Pause. Now I know. I gave her the envelope. Inside, every tuition receipt. Every lecture I turned down. Every award I never hung up. I thought you should know who really built your future. I said it without heat. Just truth. I'd prepared it the night before. Printed everything. Organized it chronologically. Made it impossible to miss the pattern. The sacrifices. Cost. The deliberate choices I'd made to put her first. Always first. She opened it slowly. Pulled out the papers. Started reading. I watched her face change. Saw the realization dawn. Watched her do the math. 4 years of medical school tuition. Housing. Living expenses. Well over $200,000. All from a woman who'd given up her career. Mom. She whispered. But I held up my hand. There's more. I pointed to the lecture invitations. Chief of Trauma. Medical Director. Board positions. Each one respectfully declined. Each one with a date that corresponded to something in her life. Her first day of middle school. Her championship soccer game. Her high school graduation. You gave up all of this. She looked devastated. For me. For you, I confirmed. Because I thought being your mother was more important than any title. I thought you'd grow up knowing you were loved. Knowing you came first. Pause. I was wrong. She started crying. I didn't comfort her. Just let her sit with it. Let her feel the weight of what she'd thrown away. She texted me a week later. A long paragraph. No apology. Just questions. I didn't reply. Some bridges don't burn. They vanish behind you when you finally stop looking back. The text came at 2 a.m. I was awake. I read it. She asked why I never told her. Asked if I blamed her. Asked what she was supposed to do with this information now. Asked if we could talk. Asked if I'd meet her for coffee. Asked if we could start over. But nowhere in those 300 words did she say sorry. She didn't apologize for the years of neglect. For the cruel words. For the casual cruelty of her indifference. She was processing her own feelings. Her own guilt. Her own confusion. Still making it about her. I set the phone down. Stared at the ceiling. Thought about replying. Thought about what I'd say. But every word I composed felt wrong. Because she didn't want to hear from me. She wanted absolution. Wanted me to tell her it was okay. That she hadn't failed me. But she had. And it wasn't okay. And I was tired of pretending. So I didn't reply. Days passed. She sent another text. Then another. Each one more desperate. I left them all unread. I'd spent years trying to reach her. Now it was her turn to feel ignored. Her turn to understand what abandonment felt like. Some lessons arrive late but land hard. I put my name back on things. I established the Dr. C. Whitaker Fund for Women in Medicine. For daughters who don't need to be reminded who their mothers are. That's what I wrote on the donation plaque. No one will erase me again. Especially not her. The scholarship launched with a reception at County General. Former colleagues attended. Current staff. Community members. The hospital's dean gave a speech about my contributions. About my legacy. About the young women who would benefit from my generosity. I sat in the front row and felt proud. The first recipient was a 22-year-old single mother named Angela. She cried when she got the news. Sent me a handwritten letter thanking me. Told me about her daughter. About her dreams. About how she'd never imagined this opportunity. She visited me at the facility. Brought her little girl. We talked for hours. You don't know what this means, Angela said. I do, I told her. I absolutely do. Because I'd been her once. young and determined and willing to sacrifice everything for my child. The difference was, I chose to invest in someone who'd appreciate it. Someone who'd remember. My daughter never came to the reception. Never acknowledged the scholarship. Never asked to meet the recipients. She'd moved on from trying to contact me. Maybe she'd finally accepted that some relationships die. That some distances are permanent. I hoped the young women I helped would do better. Would remember who lifted them up. Would become the daughters I'd wanted. I was no longer invisible. And I'd built something that would outlast us both.